In 2014, I went before Judge Lisa Brotan at the Howard County District Court. The legal professionals at the county's Abused Women's Center told me, she's the judge who protects women. Of course, I had to be the exception, though it wasn't all her fault. At the time, I was still trying to emerge from the cultural values I was raised in, where you don't look authority in the eye, and you don't speak unless you're spoken to. But in that courtroom, my silence made me look guilty. My respect was mistaken for weakness. And my culture, instead of being understood, was used against me. Judge Brotan dismissed my case without ever identifying or addressing the core issue. Control and abuse, of course. My ex-husband and his attorney did not disclose their abuse and harassment of me or the children. And I, still carrying deep shame and not culturally or emotionally prepared to speak in a public courtroom, remained silent. The legal department at HopeWorks completed and filed the petition on my behalf. They instructed me to appear and assured me they would be there with me. What they didn't say was that they'd be present, but would not stand beside me and would not speak on my behalf. That was a failure on their part, just as much as it was Judge Brotan's failure to ask about the children. They assumed I knew how to advocate for myself. I didn't. I wasn't prepared to speak about painful abuse in front of strangers. I was still silenced by shame, and they could have helped me prepare to speak in court. Instead, just before my case was called, the HopeWorks advocate told me, "Only answer what the judge asks you. Don't say anything else." That was the wrong thing to say to someone like me, especially if the judge didn't ask about my children. Judge Brotan did not inquire about the children, despite there being a standing court order requiring my ex-husband to ensure I had 4-5 days per week with them, leading to overnight visits and full custody restored to me within 3 months, as recommended by Magistrate Laura Weathersby. Judge Brotan, the man standing in front of you that day, my ex-husband, had no intention of ever complying with any court order meant to protect the children or offer relief to me as their mother. When I stood before you, I hadn't seen my children since they were taken. The only contact I had was the sound of my 6-year-old daughter crying and screaming for me over the phone. I remember her voice, raw and desperate, begging for her mother. And I remember his voice too, cold, calm, calculated, saying no. He relished in it. He fed off my pain. And I was pushed beyond my emotional limit. That moment broke something in me. It wasn't just trauma, it was torment. A deeper kind of pain when you're forced to listen to your child suffer, knowing they're being denied comfort, safety, and love. And there's nothing you can do. Once he gained custody, he deliberately blocked access and never attempted to return custody as the court required. In a separate case years later, Judge Brotan again presided, and again failed to consider the facts in front of her. Instead of evaluating the evidence, she leaned on her own past dismissal of my abuse case, using it to justify punishing me for my ex-husband's actions. Even in a matter completely unrelated to custody, involving a dispute with a former landlord, she placed the blame on me for behavior allegedly committed by him. Her refusal to separate his misconduct from my identity not only distorted the truth, it weaponized her own judicial record against me. Landlords Curtis Jordan and Hyun-Ju Kim of Elkridge, Maryland, were harassed by my ex-husband, who repeatedly appeared at their home demanding they write false statements against me. Instead of seeking protection from the man harassing them, they complied with his demands, and then filed a peace order against me, the victim. It appears this was done to protect themselves from legal liability for the false statements they provided. This is a clear example of how anyone with bad intent can manipulate the legal system, and how courts, by failing to assess context or question intent, enable that manipulation at the direct expense of victims. That peace order now appears on my background checks. I've lost job opportunities and continue to experience professional harm because of it. Howard County Court judges have shown a pattern of relying on past case history rather than evaluating the evidence in front of them. This undermines judicial impartiality and raises serious concerns about their ability to issue fair and independent rulings. That one simple act, withholding the truth about the abuse from Judge Brotan, has haunted me for over 20 years. Her dismissal of my case didn't just end that hearing. It set off a chain reaction that shaped every legal decision that followed. Other judges, influenced by that first failure, made rulings that cost me everything. Because of that moment, my daughter's needs were ignored, her voice silenced. And the niece I adopted was left completely vulnerable, groomed into becoming exactly what the abuser wanted. Someone he could control, mold, manipulate, and ultimately use against me. In February 2015, opposing counsel knew he was losing in the courtroom. So whenever the facts weren't on his side, he would reach for the one thing that had gone in his favor, Judge Brotan's old dismissal. At the divorce hearing, after everything had wrapped up, he stood in front of Judge Gelfman and tried to sway her in the most childish way, saying, "Please. Please, EE." Over and over, like a child begging for candy after being told no. Wasn't he supposed to be a professional? This was a court of law, not a playground. Judge Gelfman had just acknowledged that the abuse was too blatant to ignore. She said the mother and children needed to heal and rebuild their lives. I believed, for a moment, that the truth had finally broken through. But then, he pulled out his last trick. "Judge Brotan didn't find any abuse," he blurted. And with that, everything shifted. Judge Gelfman paused, asked someone to check, but didn't verify anything for herself. She didn't ask me. She didn't confirm the facts. Instead, she went behind my back and signed a court order. With that same attorney, that I never agreed to. That moment didn't just betray me. It betrayed justice. And what about the attorney, the one who stood in front of you, Judge Brotan, trying to discredit me with theatrics and manipulation? That same immature, sleazy attorney who weaponized your dismissal every chance he got. Shouldn't he be held accountable too? The petulant attorney knew full well that he was not permitted to introduce past, unrelated cases into current proceedings without the court's explicit permission. Yet he did so anyway, relying on a previously dismissed case, not because it was relevant, but because he knew it would unfairly sway the court's perception of me. This wasn't legal strategy, it was manipulation. A calculated move to distract from the facts and distort the truth, in direct violation of ethical and procedural standards governing family court conduct. Yet the Attorney Grievance Commission saw no misconduct. More about this attorney in another video. There's so much more to say about how that one courtroom failure changed the entire course of our lives. But I'll share the rest in another video. We Manifest is more than a story, it's a mission for justice. For our children. For every family silenced for too long. We're not waiting for change. We're creating it. Like, join and share, we are on Meta, YouTube, and TikTok so far.